I'm happy to give the floor to the rector of Eötvös Loránd University of Budapest for a welcome address. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. Dear President SASO, dear speakers and participants. It is my great pleasure to welcome you to the 9th UNICA PR and Communication Workshop. This event is organized each year, but this time it is held in an irregular way due to the COVID-19 pandemic. But thank you for joining us. As the pandemic has had an enormous effect on our lives, this morning we already had a successful webinar on biomedical, social and legal aspects of COVID-19. Now it is time to examine its impact on the PR and communication activities of the universities. I do believe this event is a remarkable opportunity for communication experts from UNICA member universities to share their experiences, best practices and lessons learned in this challenging year and the main topics of crisis communication, university branding, engaging and enrolling students. I'm sorry that we did not have the chance to meet in person at Eötvös Loránd University in Budapest this year as we originally planned, but looking at the promising program, I'm confident that the online workshop will be at least as informative and as useful a platform for sharing experiences, ideas and for lively discussions as it would be in traditional way within the walls of our university. I do believe that communication is a field facing numerous and serious challenges due to COVID-19, but it is also one of the fields that can help us the most in the current situation. Help us to stay connected, not to lose our links with the world that has, in some sense, closed around us a little bit in the past 7 months. Such an event is thus not only a platform for communication, but also itself a proof of the fact that whatever happens, we can find ways to continue our work, keeping our institutions in operation. And finally, I would like to thank once again for the joining this online workshop and to wish your interesting presentations. And I wish you fruitful discussions. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Rector BORHY. A very warm welcome from me as well. I'm Luciano, I'm the president of UNICA. I want to start saying that this working group is very important for UNICA. We have been organizing in-person meetings of this working group for many years. This year, as it was said already, we decided to do it completely online because we thought that it was safer for all participants. But I think that the quality of the meeting can be high anyway. This is what we observed in the UNICA activities in the last few months. In this tragic moment of COVID-19, UNICA reacted in the best way, organizing many events. And I have to say that the quality of all events organized so far was quite high. So I'm sure that also this one will be very successful. The number of participants actually is even higher than before. In in-person meetings, typically we had 30-40 participants gathering in one UNICA university because UNICA is spread all over Europe. We go from Reykjavik to Cyprus, from Lisbon to Moscow. We have at the moment 53 universities in 37 capital cities. So it was more difficult actually for participants to travel and to gather in one university. Now I think it's easier online. So we have to look at the positive aspects of this new era of COVID and post-COVID that we hope very soon, and use our technologies in the best way to allow good discussions, as always, very fruitful for UNICA, because the idea of UNICA is to share ideas, good practices, and help each other to improve the organization and all the aspects of our university. So I will not talk too much at this point because we have a very interesting program, and I'm looking forward to listening to all the presentations. Let me just thank very quickly again the Rector of ELTE, László BORHY, for supporting this initiative. I want to thank also his team, especially Ferenc Tako, head of the international office, and his collaborator, Katalin Igaz-Oller. I want to thank very much the chair of this UNICA working group, Jón ÖRN GUÐBJARTSSON. I hope the pronunciation is not too wrong. And he's the head of marketing and communication at the University of Iceland. And also want to thank very much the chairs of the two sessions of this event, and particularly Olga MAMAEVA, Deputy Head for Communication of the e-learning office at the National Research University Higher School of Economics in Moscow, and David Smith, Head of Marketing of the University of East London. And this is a good example of how UNICA is also collaborating with other universities who are not members of UNICA. This is something we like to do, and when we have good colleagues like David Smith on board, is always a pleasure. Let me also say that this is like we can call it in UNICA a Budapest day, because this morning we had a very successful webinar on COVID-19 organized jointly by Eötvös Loránd University together with the Semmelweis University, the two UNICA members in Budapest. And this afternoon we have this second webinar. So in one day, two webinars organized by the universities in Budapest. So congratulations and thank you very much for your support to UNICA. Again, I will stop here, and it's a pleasure now to leave the floor to Jón to continue the meeting. And I'm sure that again will be very successful, and I wish you a very good meeting.
Dear UNICA family members, I hope this is sounding okay. Thanks so much to László, BORHY, the rector of the Eötvös Loránd University of Budapest, and also to Luciano SASO, our one and only UNICA president. I hope my pronunciation is acceptable. My name is Jón ÖRN GUÐBJARTSSON. I know it's very easy to pronounce that. I am the chair of the comms group of UNICA, and as well the head of marketing at the University of Iceland. I'm so happy to be able to meet you all here today on the data highway. I'm live from my living room in Reykjavik, and we have now 75 participants. So I've never had so many people in my living room before. It's amazing. This is especially great that we have this alive now, as we have been trying really hard to have this event for quite a while. And of course, we were all supposed to be in beautiful Budapest at this very moment. That's pretty sad because I've never been to Budapest, but I've heard the really popular song Budapest by the amazing artist George Ezra. I'm sure you have done it before as well earlier. Unfortunately, the coronavirus has set its mark on our world, and we need to wait a while before being able to be those we were, those we used to be, traveling freely around the world, being in Budapest, in Brussels, Amsterdam, London, and Barcelona, Paris, and of course great places like Reykjavik and Ísafjörður and Vestmannaeyja Kaupstaður. These are very great places in Iceland. And just being able to stay close to anyone in a metro, it will be soon, I'm sure. Vaccine for COVID-19 is on the way, thanks to the beauty of science and widespread cooperation of scientists and nations. An unselfish share of knowledge is really important, and that's exactly what we will be doing here today for the next few hours, sharing knowledge and our experience. And before we head further, I want to give some gratitude, or a lot of gratitude, to the fantastic people of the Eötvös Loránd University of Budapest for having this along with the head office of UNICA in Brussels and all the people involved. And this is really great that we are doing this experiment here. And since we started, we have already won up, so it's now 76. So it's really great and better than we have ever had in this physical events that were last time in Cyprus. Now let's look at things ahead. As you all know, we will be having the odd circumstances that we're dealing with in focus today. University PR and communications from behind the mask. And I'm not just happy to leave my mask on the desk this time. We have two sessions this afternoon, both with a focus on the mask. Session 1, Universities in Uncertain Times, Crisis Communication Lessons Learned. And the chair of that will be Olga MAMAEVA. She's Deputy Head of Communications E-Learning Office, National Research University Higher School of Economics. She will be the chair of that session. And in that slot, we will have the following sessions: University Communications at the times of COVID. And my great colleague from Iceland, Pall Asgeir Torfason, Head of E-Learning at the university, will be doing that. And following that, the social role of universities in COVID-19 crisis. That will be Daria Lisak from the heart of Europe, from the University of Ljubljana. And then we will have the Romans talking about what we should keep when the emergency is over. And I'm really curious to hear everything about that. Alessandra Barberis, she's Head of Communication Office, and Daniela Vingiani, Manager at the Public Relations Office, both from the Sapienza University in Rome, Italy. And after that, we will listen to Ágúst Teslar, Head of Communication Department at the Eötvös Loránd University of Budapest, and he will speak about maintaining the image through COVID-19. And at the end of the session, as we heard earlier, we will hear the questions answered that you will prompt along the way. And later in the afternoon, we will have session 2 with focus on university branding and advertising to support the recruitment of international students in the COVID-19 era. And chair of that will be my great colleague, David Smith from the University of East London in the UK. He is Head of Marketing. So we will introduce all these lectures in that slot later on. And I've been talking enough. So Olga MAMAEVA, she's, as I said earlier, Deputy Head of Communication at the National Research University. The floor, or the chair, or should we say the space is yours. You are leading the show. Here you go.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you for letting us to discuss the University in Uncertain Times, Crisis Communication Lesson Learned. So I would just be very specific. We have 15 minutes for every presentation, and the first one is University Communication in the Times of COVID, providing information and support. Pall Torfason, Head of E-Learning, University of Iceland. Please, Paul, could you start?
Thank you. I'm just going to share my screen. So you should see the screen right now.
Yes, it's okay.
Right. So, hello everyone, and thank you so much for having me. My name is Pall Asgeir Torfason, and I work as a Head of E-Learning at the University of Iceland. And in this short session, I will be discussing how we implemented a new learning management solution during COVID and how that worked to our advantage to support teachers. I will focus on the culture campaign and change management aspects. And this is a short session, so I won't be able to go deep into these points, but I hope this will be beneficial for you. I will answer questions in the end, but if we run out of time, you can always send me an email. So before we dive into how we supported the university during COVID, we need to look at how the environment was before COVID hit. A little over a year ago, the University of Iceland had 2 learning management systems, one which was homemade and connected to our intraweb, UGLA, and that solution hadn't been upgraded in many years. And we also had Moodle, which was hosted by the IT division, and teachers could pick and choose which solution they would use, and most would pick UGLA, the homemade solution, or around 70 to 80% of teachers. Others would pick Moodle. So we had an outdated learning management system being used with limited features. So a part of the university didn't have the tools they needed to make the teaching more accessible and engaging through the web. And we could say there was limited tools for teachers to use, and sometimes even limited knowledge because of that. So lucky for us, the University of Iceland sets a strategy for each 5 years, and in the current strategy for 2016 to 2021, there was a lot of emphasis on teaching, both online, blended, and on campus. And here's an example of the tool of the goals set in the current strategy. Learning management systems will be strengthened and explore the possibilities of making better use of IT in teaching. So late 2018, early 2019, we started to work towards those tasks you see there below, which led to a totally different environment for the university. In the end of 2019, stakeholders at the university picked Canvas as their only learning management solution in the university. And we started to use Inspera as our examination tools, both on campus and at home. And we even had more solutions available to teachers. And as you see, the timing of these changes at the university was quite good. In late February, we had our first COVID case, and it only grew from there. Luckily, the implementation of the examination tools started sometime before COVID, so that was well on its way. But we were only starting to implement Canvas, or new learning management system. So now you know a bit about the backstory of the environment of the university. So in the next slides, I will focus on the implementation and how we use the implementation to our advantage. With COVID and us in the middle of a huge implementation, we need to focus and set a clear implementation plan for these tools. One of the things we need to realize was that we would never be able to make everyone happy with this change, no matter how great the product was. With COVID, we noticed the typical change management would need to be altered. And this image is probably my favorite when it comes to change management. We will always have thought leaders and supporters who fully embrace the changes ahead, but many will be on the fence or even resistant. Normally, there's a certain percentage in each group, like the image shows, but with COVID, we saw this image change a bit. Suddenly, those who were resistant couldn't be as resistant as before, and those on the fence became supporters. So that was just music to my ears. So we needed, of course, to get more people to move to the top groups. So our priority was not to eliminate those who were on the fence or resistant, but to lower the percentage of people in those two groups. How can we get those on the fence to support the project, and how can we convince the resistant to accept the change? And at the beginning of the implementation, we had come up with 4 key activities we want to focus on. That is communication plan, dealing with potential risks, culture change, and sharing success. We put a lot of effort in clarifying to ourselves what the key message was and make sure that everyone in the team had the same vision. Why did we really make the change? As everyone knows, it's really hard to do something if you don't understand why you're doing it. So we crafted a key message and identified the communication channels in the university. And we decided to attend faculty meetings in all 26 faculties and deliver the message ourselves in person from November to January, right before COVID. You remember the good times where you could shake hands and talk without masks on. So in these short meetings, we emphasized the reasons for the change, the project structures, and the timeline. And we played a short video where the rector of the university would explain the reason for the change and emphasize the importance of participating. We also thanked the staff members for taking the time to make the change. We used the last few minutes of the presentation to show the tool and what the teachers might expect when they were setting up the course. And we also met with university staff that are sometimes overlooked but still affected by the change. For example, students registration, international office, and university center service desk. These meetings were really time-consuming and repetitive for us, and by the end, I was quite fed up with myself, just hearing my voice over and over again. But this really helped with the implementation, because the staff could put in some faces to the change and understand why it was happening, ask questions, get the right information with a few months' notice, and understand the message from the rector that this is an important change supported by leadership. So here's a short preview of the message from the rector. Not that you will be able to understand his words. I'm not even sure if you can hear it, but it shows that the video was about simplicity and clear message. We had no effects, no music, and no distraction. So probably no sound, but you can see how the setup is. So a big part of the planning phase was to identify potential risks, and there were 3 risks that we identified and how we dealt with them. As you know, some people will be resistant to change or be on the fence, and for some of the reasons are really legitimate. So people have a very diverse IT skills, and some resist to corporate factor of big international systems and so on. The approach we took was to offer some of those teachers to take part in a pilot group we set up to fully prepare us going live, not just to calm them down, but to learn from their concerns and, if necessary, change our approach to the implementation. Resistant people can be really helpful in showing us what to expect from users. A pilot group of only thought leaders and eager people does not represent the reality we would face when going live. Another big challenge was to guarantee that the stakeholders we had identified would have a voice, and to address that risk, a user had to access to their representatives in the steering committee. We also implemented the ambassador system, where each school selected a group of people who helped us in organizing training for the staff and communicate to the implementation team. All the concerns they heard from within the schools. This helped us in finding further risks and address them in time, and this was a huge reality check. The last risk we mentioned is the unhappy users that would never get the service they expect. With good cooperation with the IT department and the ambassadors, we trained them up and got a team of personnel that assisted users very quickly. A big part of the change was having a culture change, and we used these tools to address that. A few things we did in the culture campaign was that we had coffee mugs made for the teachers, and that was just, in theory, we wanted to create discussion about Canvas while they were drinking their morning coffee. We also had roll-up curtains with different key messages, for example, how can we help, information about workshops and so on. And my favorite, which was the Canvas beer. This was made for the Canvas team morale, the implementation team. And after a big milestone, the team would get together and enjoy a nice cold Canvas beer. We also had digital signage advertisement that would pop up on the information screens with quotes from teachers and students on the tool. We had a first step brochure made for teachers that were built in the course. And this is the most recent one, hotel hangers with the message, teaching happening, please do not disturb, because it's a new reality today that teachers are teaching in their offices and so on. So people were really happy with this. And these might seem gimmicky, but we believe this truly helps spread the message and build excitement around the tool. The last thing I wanted to mention is that we also use the tactic of users talk to users. No matter how convincing an initiative you are, most people will want to hear from their peers about the real pros and cons of a system. Tools are only good as their users, so we want to focus on the university to accept the change and learning how to use the tool. And we call these success stories, but like all stories, they include some ups and downs. And the stories have to be realistic and relatable. So we learned that you quickly lose your credibility if you oversell or glorify a product. And this is a teacher talking about how the system was complicated to begin with, but they learned from it and now they're quite happy. So obviously the result was that we implemented a tool successfully, but when doing so, we learned a lot about the community. We have built a strong community in the school and great channels to communicate directly to teachers, which we used to our advantage during COVID to share information and support teachers in these difficult times. We also learned many best practices on how to engage with students and staff in different schools and avoid the top-down approach like office at the university telling people what to do. We could use the community to spread the message and have peer-to-peer access. And with the culture campaign, we managed to get everyone, or mostly everyone, on board with the changes and build excitement around it. They understood why they were doing it, what they could be doing with the new system, and that opened up new doors and to many possibilities of using technology in education, and led to a new thinking in a way. And it became really exciting and not a burden to use new tools. We were all on a journey together, and it was a fun journey. So that spread into the COVID environment we had to have. We also cleared support, so it was being handled more, there were much more easier access to the support team and much better response time. And we had resources in each school to help and support teachers, and that led to a really happy environment and trust in the management. So, as I said, this is a short session, but I think my time is probably up. So I think I hope this was interesting for you, and just thank you so much for having me.
Dear Pall Asgeir, thank you so much. It was really interesting and